Hello, this is Robert with Society Case Files, and I'm coming to you here with another build video. This time we're going to be taking on a Space Marine Lieutenant. This was part of my video that I did with Carlina von Karstein, but it was just so long I decided to break it up and turn it into two videos. And this one is a step-by-step. It's done at normal speed, and there's a few things I thought you might be able to take away from it, especially if you're a beginner. If you enjoy this kind of content, please subscribe to the channel and drop a like. Other than that, we're going to jump right in here in a moment, and I hope you enjoy the content. Thanks. So if someone has a better way of opening these than I do, I'd love to know. I basically just peel back this piece of plastic and then create a cutting nightmare right there, and then just do my best to get it open enough to get the sprue and the instructions out. Which that will probably do. And let's see. How crazy is the Space Marine Lieutenant going to be? A couple sprues. And a single beefy stand. So we'll set the trash aside and take a look at this and see. Oh, not too bad. It looks like we're going to be doing some knee bits. The shin guards goes to a torso. Torso goes to the back. Looks like a loincloth and a holster. And then I can pick a power fist, power sword, and I think that's just a pointy finger, which is always hilarious. I'm going to be going with the power sword, and then he gets his choice of weapons. It looks like 2 for the most part. He'll probably be going with that pose right there because that one's pretty cool. And we're going to need number 1, 3, and 4. 3 and 4 will be his, it looks like, right leg. And let's see, here's 4. Let's dive in. And I'm sure that if you're watching this, you've done it before, but if you haven't, a great piece of advice is that you should only cut off what you need. So whatever you're directly building at that moment is what you should be cutting off. In other words, I'm going to do... So I'm doing number 1, and I'm going to do 3 and 4. And I'm not going to cut out 5 and 6 until 3 and 4 are ready. Then I'll do 5 and 6, and I'll put it all together. And then I can move on and do 2. If you just start, sometimes it doesn't matter as much because it's kind of obvious. But when it's not as obvious, it's good to not have all of the stuff cut out because it can be pretty frustrating. And something else to keep in mind is that occasionally you're going to have this situation here where this part here under his foot, I'm going to use this to point it out, right here, looks like it might be something you'd want to cut off. But in actuality, it's going to go into this bit of terrain that goes on the base. So you don't want to cut off extraneous pieces. Sometimes they actually have value. And that's made even more of a pain in this regard because the contact point on the sprue looks to be almost as thick as that. So it would make sense that you'd think, oh, that probably has to go. I wonder why it's even there. But if you look ahead in the instructions, you'd see it. If you don't, then maybe look around and see, will that have anything? Or just leave it until you find out it doesn't. Sometimes that's okay. These pieces of advice are not meant to be insulting. They are things that I wish I would have known when I first jumped in, because I'd see something and I'd say doesn't really appear to be a purpose behind that, and so I would foolishly cut things off and be sorry for it. So I've made a lot of Space Marines now, and I'm pretty much old hat at how they work. And in this regard, there's quite a few that do this shin guard thing. They're really obvious how they attach up because these parts here almost always go right over a foot And so you just gotta get the glue in place and throw it on there. It's pretty simple, especially when you've done an entire Blood Angels army like I have. I have made quite a few. In this regard, what I'm doing is I'm dry fitting to do the leg, and the leg has some really good guides, and it just easily mashes up. So I'm going to actually put the glue on the leg just because it's easier for me. And then we'll be ready to grab the other leg. What I absolutely love is when I get something to dry fit and then I come back and I forget exactly how I dry fitted it. That's always super fun. All right, so let's get 5 and 6. Now 5 does not have anything on the foot, which is also another reason why when you're looking at 6, you're like, what is that doing on the foot? If you haven't read ahead on the instructions to see. So always a good idea to look ahead, especially with more complex characters or units like the Keeper of Secrets. It was pretty essential to go way ahead and just see everything. And I have another video, a short, about Aveline, the special Sisters of Battle character that came out, because there was a piece of instruction that suggested you did something in a specific way, and it turns out that that was actually much more difficult. And in my case, it didn't work at all. So in those instances, it's good to look ahead and see, well, wait a minute, is there something else that would make this easier? And in some cases it did. And in that one specifically, I was able to get her built much easier. And then I had to make that video because I'm going to tell you, that model was very expensive to be going through the trouble I was, and she was going to look pretty terrible if I didn't do it the way I did. In this model's case, there is a guide where the knee part here has this little hexagon thing, and it coincides with the knee pad, so it even goes on easier than normal. So I'm actually going to put some glue on the hex itself, the edges, and just right over the foot. Be more than sufficient. Like I said, I do put too much glue on, but I am trying to settle that down. Another dry fit here for this leg. And you're going to be able to, like, when you have one leg on, it's easy to line these up a little better because, like, for instance, this leg has to be connecting in a way that will level it with the other foot so that it fits on the base. I'm not quite getting it here, but let's see. There is a divot here that should help the guide. He's not bending his toe, so it's not going to go too far back. And sometimes it's easier to come at them from behind, just to have a look and see if maybe you can find a smooth way to get it connecting. Like there. Got it, finally. And it pretty much coincides with the other foot. So I'm just going to make it work. Quite often when you make a connection with these characters, when you start building them, you'll find that they do link up well enough to where you're like, oh yeah, that's exactly how it goes. And it just snaps into place, almost like pushed together. And sometimes that doesn't happen. And because it doesn't always happen, it can actually make it to where you try things that you probably shouldn't. You're like, no, that's definitely not the way it's working. I've got to do blah, blah, blah. And then you find out, oh, I was wrong. It actually is much simpler than I thought, blah, 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 too. That looks pretty good. And in this case, this foot lines up with the bottom of this because that's going to go into that terrain. So now it wants me to pick a loincloth, whichever one I want, 7 or 8. He's going to go right in the middle there. I stand corrected. I need to actually do number 2 first. Put his torso on. Put his chest on. This is number 2. So we're going to dive into this here. If I had to pick a good starting model and then stick with that model for more than just a single try, I'd probably pick any of the Space Marines. Before I even tried the Eschers and, you know, had that misery and messed up my other characters, the novitiates, I actually bought a whole box of Chaos Space Marines, and I just tried all kinds of stuff with them. They were my first paint jobs. They were my first everything. And it was pretty cool. It taught me a lot. And I recommend finding something chunky like that. Don't start with like Necrons. That is just, they're tough. I have the kill team of them, and I finally finished them, but I had to come back to them because they're pretty frustrating to start with. Even though I had done quite a few things since then, or before then. And then after I came back, well, by the time I came back, I had done a whole bunch of Daughters of Cain, witch elves. And so, oh, my leg just fell off. Yay. Good times. And so I was pretty much ready to tackle them at that point. And I was able to get them finished. And they look pretty cool. I still am not entirely convinced they're worth the effort. They were really problematic, even knowing what I was doing. I found them more of a struggle than they probably needed to be. Their contact points are so tiny. Even knowing what I was doing made it really a challenge. So, okay, let's get that loincloth taken care of. Oops, I almost grabbed the old sprue from Carlina. This is all weapon sprue stuff, it looks like. Well, there's 9. And 9 is the holster that's going to go on him, so we'll grab that. And we need 7 or 8. I think 7 and 8 are over here. I kind of think I like the one with the key better myself, although the leather strap thing is pretty cool. I'm going to go with the key. I dig it. You saw the paint scheme that I use for the blood angels. I don't do the black symbol over the chest. I do that white, and then I use Agrax to make it look a little bit like bone. That was my intention, at least. I really dig that. So that'll be happening with this character as well. There we go. We got a little loincloth. Let's check out how this is going to go. I think it goes right here. I bet it can kind of go wherever you want. So I'm going to glue the item itself and then just stick it on. By the way, if you haven't done it yet, a lot of Necromunda is just sticking grenades or guns or whatever else on characters. Like, that's half the battle. And considering that most of them look like they were going to fall off, I honestly did not put a whole lot of that stuff on my Necromunda characters. Just did not happen. Oh yeah, that makes sense. If you look on the back, his pouch and grenade go back there very easily, so that makes sense. So there he is. We are up to point number 2. It's time to pick some weapons. Like I said, I'm going to go with the power sword here. instead of the big power fist. All right, there's our right hand weapon. And the left hand weapon, I want to go, like I said, I wanted the one where he's like poking his arm up. And let's see, 10. Yeah, I want to go with 10. It's a little plasma pistol. Okay, so let's find 10. There it is right here. Something you can look forward to doing on Space Marines, no matter who they are, is you're going to be putting on these shoulder pads. I'm only seeing, oh, there's the other one. The other one's back here. So yeah, there's the 2 shoulder pads. Those will definitely be going on as soon as we pretty much get these on, it looks like. Yep, and he has a backpack as well. So the arms are pretty interesting with Space Marines. They're really easy to get on. They line up pretty well. But it is good to get a look at it from both the front and the back when you build them, so that you can see if it lines up well. My Chaos Marine test, I put it on. It looked great in the back, and it was really terrible in the front, so I had to kind of move it around. So as soon as it kind of connects up, I just look at the front and see, did I actually do a good job? And in this case, no, I did not. I think that it can connect a little bit better. Let's do it like this. Let's see what his sword arm looks like. Sort of just out to the side. That's probably good enough. Yeah, that'll be great. Okay. And then the other arm. Now, when you're doing it more swiftly, like I am here, and you're not letting that dry as much as I probably should, make sure to try and hold the character in the middle of the body and not touch that as much as possible, so that you don't run the risk of knocking it off or making it fall off like I did the leg earlier, because it's just frustrating, especially if it has had the chance to dry a little bit, because then it'll start peeling and it looks like trash. Some of this you can correct when you're painting and you won't notice. And that's something else to keep in mind, that occasionally it looks like you've done something that is irreparable, but that's rarely the case. So don't worry too much about that happening. So you can always go back, and there's all kinds of things you can do to fix models. There's this stuff, this green stuff. This can fill in gaps if you find them in the model. I should have had this when I did my Keeper of Secrets, because had I had this, I would have been able to fix the problem that I messed up with the arm much easier than I ended up doing. But she's fine. So just that's just one of many ways that you can do it. So anyway, we're on to the shoulder pads. The shoulder pads here tell us which ones go to which. So 21 is going to go on his left arm. That's the one with the gun. So I'm going to grab that. Now, in some cases, I will still, I know I said not to cut things out until you need them, but occasionally I'll cut them out just to get them off the sprue, and then I just put them in position to remember which side they go on. So in this case, I'm setting them on either side of the model, so I know that they go where they go. So these are pretty simple. I rarely even dry fit these anymore. They just pop right on there. Poop, and you're done. So very interesting how pretty much everyone does this. Now, interestingly, these are just plain. There's nothing on them. No extra sculpt or anything. A lot of Blood Angel stuff has all kinds of decorative nonsense on them. These blank ones are kind of cool because you could use a transfer sheet on them, the way I did with some of my Terminators. But I don't mind the big ones with the sculpt. This one has a little, like, parchment piece on it. So that's kind of fun. So now that we've done that, we have 2 choices of heads. One is with a helmet, and one is the dude's face. I am going to do a helmet. I pretty much universally pick helmet if I can for my Blood Angel stuff. That's just me. I prefer it. I just don't like watching the Space Marine characters run around without helmets on. I find it utterly hilarious to see. All right, so the dude without the helmet is sort of looking in the direction of his pointing gun, but this one with his sword and the gun pointing up is looking straight at us. So that tells me that I can pretty much put his helmet on in any sort of direction I want. So I'm going to have him sort of looking off towards the sword. In this case, you have multiple divots. The deepest one is where the head is going to make contact the most. I put my glue in there, and then voila, we've got a head. And you can manipulate it around a little bit, get him looking the direction you really want him to. He has a backpack, which is right here. It's got the crazy little skull on it and stuff. So I'm going to pop that off so that we can fulfill the end of step 5, which will be the backpack. We did the head. There is a little piece that I can put on his arm up here. It looks like this. It's got some stuff on it. I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to put that on there. That's just not happening. I don't really see a good point to doing so in this case. So it's not happening for me. Do what you want with these guys. You can go grab orc stuff and throw on some trophies if you want to. But I just don't like those extraneous little tiny pieces. Sometimes I put them on. Just depends on how much of an impact they'll make on the model. So this backpack lines up very easily. It's pretty much standard Space Marine fare here. Just gonna get it slathered up. Throw this on. And the backpack's done. So the last bit for him is we've got to get his piece of terrain off. We get the terrain. That makes contact with our base. And we will be done with a Space Marine Lieutenant. He'll be ready to join his fellow Space Marines behind me in the hell of not being painted yet. So it looks like they want it to kind of go in the middle there. It's not really going to matter too much because when I get his foot on him, so I guess it goes like that. Oh yeah, look at that. Very easy. Voila, just sticks right in there, huh? So we're going to get that glued on and ready. And then we... okay, there we go. Put that foot on. Oh, my leg got a little messed up, but I can bend it up. It won't be a big deal. So let's flip this over and get some glue on this so I can base it. He will not be going anywhere. So let's get this in position. And voila. We have a Space Marine Lieutenant. Let's get that leg bent down a little better and push it down. There we go. He looks good to me. Cool little dude. And there you go. The Space Marine Lieutenant completely finished and ready to go. If you like this content and you want to see more, please subscribe to the channel and drop a like. And if you've got another model you'd like to see built, leave a comment and let me know what it is. Or if you've got some thoughts and suggestions, tips, anything of the sort, I'd love to see them. Otherwise, thanks very much for stopping by to check out the channel, and I look forward to seeing you next time.